$200. That is what an average American homeowner spends each season on synthetic lawn fertilizer for a quarter-acre yard. By August, much of that lawn fades back to yellow. Sitting inside most kitchens right now are 5 ordinary ingredients. Mixed correctly, they produce grass deep enough in color to shame any chemical-fed neighbor's lawn. Old gardening books and golf course superintendents have circulated this recipe for over 50 years. The science is real. The math behind it is surprising. And the right way to apply it depends on something almost no lawn video mentions: the kind of grass growing under your feet. This is Rooted Grace. Part 1. Why bagged fertilizer keeps lawns hooked. Synthetic nitrogen creates green you can see, but roots you cannot trust. Here's what happens when granular fertilizer hits the ground. Grass blades absorb the salt-based nutrients through tiny pores called stomata. Color floods in within days. Underneath the surface, those same salts pull moisture out of the surrounding soil. Roots stay shallow. They have no reason to dig deep, because the food sits right at the top. Within 4 to 6 weeks, the salts wash through the soil. The green fades. The cycle starts again. Long-term damage shows up in subtle ways. After several seasons of heavy synthetic feeding, the soil itself starts to feel different. Denser, harder to push a shovel into, slower to absorb water during a heavy rain. Earthworm activity drops noticeably. The lawn that once recovered easily from a dry summer takes longer and longer to bounce back. These are the visible signs of a soil that has been chemically pressured into a kind of long-term exhaustion. How did residential lawn care end up here? The story traces back to 1913. 2 chemists, Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch, developed a way to pull nitrogen straight out of the air and turn it into liquid ammonia at industrial scale. That breakthrough fed billions of people. After both world wars ended, the same factories that had produced ammonia for munitions found a peacetime market in agricultural fertilizer. By the early 1950s, that market expanded into American backyards. A new post-war ideal. The perfect emerald lawn as a symbol of home ownership, spread through advertising, lawn service contracts, and seed and feed industry partnerships. Companies like Scotts and ChemLawn built business models around recurring residential applications. Homeowners became regular, repeating customers. The economic logic was straightforward. A one-time bag of compost is sold once. A bag of synthetic feed gets sold again every 6 weeks. That logic still drives the lawn aisle at every hardware store today. But while bagged fertilizer was taking over the front yard, a quieter knowledge survived in basements, garden sheds, and the pamphlets of organic gardening clubs. That knowledge is built around 5 ingredients sitting in most pantries this very moment. Part 2. The 5-ingredient tonic, ingredient by ingredient. The recipe was popularized by gardening author Jerry Baker, whose books became fixtures on American bookshelves through the 1970s and 1980s. 5 ingredients. Each one does a specific job. 1 can of regular, non-diet soda. 1 can of regular beer, not light beer. Half a cup of liquid dish soap, free of antibacterial additives. Half a cup of household ammonia. Half a cup of mouthwash. These get poured into a hose-end sprayer set for 10 to 20 gallons of total flow. The concentrate is never poured directly onto grass. The sprayer mixes the tonic with rushing water as it flows, diluting the concentrate hundreds of times before it touches a single blade. Application happens in the cool of early morning, around 6 o'clock, when stomata sit wide open and evaporation is at its lowest. Frequency, every 3 weeks during the active growing season. Now, the chemistry behind each ingredient. Household ammonia delivers a small, instant dose of nitrogen. Half a cup of standard 5 to 10% household ammonia provides roughly 6 grams of nitrogen, a fraction of what a synthetic feeding contains, but enough to give microbes a quick chemical signal that nitrogen is available. This dose sits well below any burn threshold, once diluted through a hose-end sprayer. Liquid dish soap acts as a surfactant. It breaks the surface tension of water, allowing the tonic to penetrate compacted soil instead of beating up on the surface and rolling off into the street. Without the surfactant, much of any liquid tonic would never reach the root zone where it actually does work. Mouthwash is the most debated ingredient. Old-time gardeners believed the alcohol and essential oils inside it disrupted soft-bodied pests like aphids and grubs. Modern turfgrass research does not support that claim. Diluted across 40 liters of water in a hose-end sprayer, the active compounds drop to trace levels, far below any concentration that could affect insect physiology. The honest function of mouthwash in this recipe is a mild secondary surfactant, nothing more. Many experienced gardeners now skip it entirely without losing any visible result. A successful application is straightforward to picture. The hose-end sprayer hooks onto a standard garden hose. A dial on the sprayer controls dilution rate. The concentrate sits in the sprayer's reservoir. Water rushes through, picks up small amounts of concentrate, and exits as a fine spray. A 5,000 square foot lawn should take roughly 20 to 30 minutes to cover at a normal walking pace. A few things to avoid. Never apply during the heat of midday, when stomata are partially closed and most liquid evaporates before absorption. Never apply right before a heavy rain, which simply washes the tonic away. Never apply to a lawn that is visibly stressed from drought. Water the lawn deeply the evening before, then apply the tonic the following morning. And never apply to dormant grass during winter or peak summer heat for warm season lawns, because there is no active root system to receive the benefit. The two ingredients people overlook are the soda and the beer. These are not feeding the grass. They are feeding something else. That something else turns out to be the most overlooked workforce in any backyard. Part 3. The microbiome under your feet. A single teaspoon of healthy lawn soil contains up to 1 billion bacteria. Researchers from the Earth Microbiome Project have documented tens of thousands of microbial species in agricultural and turfgrass soils. Filaments of fungi stretch through the same teaspoon, threaded so finely the human eye cannot detect them. This community is called the soil microbiome. In the narrow zone, right around grass roots, a frontier soil scientists call the rhizosphere. An exchange takes place every day the sun shines. Grass performs photosynthesis and creates liquid sugars in its blades. Anywhere from 5 to 30% of those sugars get pushed back down through the roots and released into the surrounding soil. This is not a leak. It is a deliberate trade. The released sugars attract specific beneficial bacteria and fungi. The fungi extend microscopic threads called hyphae deep into the surrounding earth. Those threads mine for trapped phosphorus, water, and minerals that grass roots alone could never reach. The nutrients get delivered straight back to the roots. A separate group of soil bacteria handles nitrogen. Ammonia-oxidizing archaea and ammonia-oxidizing bacteria, researchers shorten these to AOA and AOB, convert raw nitrogen compounds into the exact nitrate forms grass can absorb. Peer-reviewed research published in Frontiers in Microbiology has confirmed that healthy populations of these specific microbes are the engines of any working lawn nitrogen cycle. The same studies showed that long-term heavy synthetic nitrogen applications reduce the diversity of these microbes substantially. In other words, chemical fertilizer kills off the very organisms that would otherwise produce nitrogen for free. Nitrogen is only one of several jobs the soil microbiome handles. Phosphorus is another. Most yards contain plenty of phosphorus already, but it sits chemically locked to soil particles, unavailable to roots. Specific bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi solubilize that locked phosphorus and deliver it back to the grass. A third job is disease suppression. Healthy microbial populations crowd out and outcompete root pathogens that would otherwise cause patches of brown, thinning grass. A fourth job is drought tolerance. Mycorrhizal threads dramatically extend the effective root zone of grass, giving each plant access to moisture from a much larger volume of soil than its own roots could ever explore. Every one of these benefits comes free as long as the microbes are alive and active. The Jerry Baker tonic works on a completely different principle. The sugar in regular soda, about 39 grams per 12-ounce can, and the residual carbohydrates in beer feed the soil microbes directly. The microbes multiply. They break down thatch. They aerate the soil. They unlock nutrients that were already present but locked away. The grass gets fed because the microbes get fed first. But here's where modern lawn care gets interesting. The Jerry Baker Tonic is not the only homemade microbe feeder out there, and on a per square foot basis, it may not even be the most powerful one. Part 4. Tonic versus Molasses Drench. The math nobody runs. This is the breakdown almost no lawn video shows. A complete Jerry Baker Tonic batch. 1 can of soda, 1 can of beer, plus the half cups of ammonia, soap, and mouthwash, gets diluted to a 20-gallon hose end sprayer. Total water flow during a full discharge, about 76 liters. The combined sugar load from the soda and the beer comes to roughly 49 grams. Spread across a typical 5,000 square foot lawn, the math works out to about 1/10 of a gram of sugar per square meter. Now consider molasses drench, the technique organic gardeners reach for when they want a stronger microbial wake-up. Standard rate: 2 tablespoons of unsulfured blackstrap molasses per gallon of water. Application rate: 1 gallon of solution per 100 square feet of lawn. 2 tablespoons of blackstrap molasses contains approximately 32 grams of sugar. Per square meter, that works out to roughly 3.5 grams of sugar. That is about 34 times more microbial fuel per square meter than the Jerry Baker Tonic delivers. This is a meaningful gap, and most lawn videos never run the numbers. The Jerry Baker Tonic is a spark. The molasses drench is a meal. So which one belongs in a real lawn program? Both. They do different jobs. The Jerry Baker Tonic spreads quickly across a large lawn. It includes a built-in surfactant for compacted soil. It contains a small, instant nitrogen dose. It is best as a regular 3-week maintenance spray during the active growing season. A steady drumbeat keeping microbial populations awake and active. A molasses drench is heavier, stickier, and meant for slower, soaking application directly into the soil rather than as a foliar spray. 2 tablespoons per gallon, watered in slowly, allowed to soak. It works best 2 or 3 times per season as a deep microbial reset. Early spring to wake the soil up after winter, midsummer to push grass through stress, and late summer to prepare roots for cool weather. Used together, the two cover both the everyday rhythm and the seasonal turning points of a thriving lawn. The tonic keeps the engine running. The molasses drench rebuilds it. It is worth mentioning what other popular kitchen tonics do not deliver the same results. Compost tea, when properly aerated and brewed for 24 to 48 hours, can be excellent. But most homemade compost teas are mixed wrong, applied too thin, or contain too many anaerobic pathogens to be safe. Diluted milk sprays have a small role in pest deterrence, but contribute almost no microbial fuel. Banana water and vegetable scraps soaked in water provide minor potassium, but nothing close to the carbohydrate density of either the Jerry Baker Tonic or a true molasses drench. The 2 recipes covered here are the ones that consistently produce visible lawn results across decades of home gardener observation. But there is one factor that decides whether either of these techniques even works on a particular yard. That factor is the type of grass growing in the soil. Part 5. Warm season versus cool season. The missing variable. Most lawn tonic videos treat all grass as one grass. American lawns split into 2 broad families that respond to feeding on completely different schedules. Cool season grasses include Kentucky bluegrass, fine fescues, tall fescue, and perennial ryegrass. These dominate the northern half of the country, from the Pacific Northwest through the upper Midwest and across New England down into the mid-Atlantic states. Optimal growth temperature, 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Peak feeding windows, spring and especially fall. A cool season lawn pushes most of its annual root growth in October. Warm season grasses include Bermuda, zoysia, St. Augustine, centipede, and buffalo grass. These dominate the southern half of the country, the Sun Belt, the Gulf Coast, the lower Midwest, and most of California. Optimal growth temperature, 80 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Peak feeding windows, late spring through midsummer. A warm season lawn goes dormant when soil temperatures drop below 55 degrees. Microbial activity follows similar patterns. Soil microbes work hardest when soil temperatures sit between 70 and 100 degrees. Apply a Jerry Baker Tonic in cool spring soil to a Bermuda lawn, and most of the sugars sit untouched. The grass is not actively rooting yet. The microbes are sluggish. Apply that same tonic to Kentucky bluegrass during a cool day of October, and the result is dramatic. Because cool season grass is in its peak rooting phase, and the microbes still have enough warmth to respond. Here is the practical timing rule, region by region. For cool season lawns, apply the Jerry Baker tonic every 3 weeks from late April through late June, then again from late August through late October. The fall window is the most important application of the entire year. That is when cool season grasses build their deepest root systems, and feeding the microbiome at that exact moment pays back in resilience the following summer. For warm season lawns, apply the tonic every 3 weeks from mid-May through August. Skip applications during cool spring and fall periods entirely. The grass is dormant or transitioning, and the microbes are not active enough to use the sugars. Molasses drench timing follows the same logic. Cool season lawns benefit from drenches in early April, again in late May, and a final one in early September. Warm season lawns, late May, mid-July, and early September. There is also a transition zone, running roughly from northern Virginia through Tennessee and into northern Texas, where both grass families struggle. Lawns in this band often contain a mix of cool season and warm season grasses. Time applications to whichever grass type dominates the lawn, and accept that one feeding window or the other will always be slightly off. For anyone uncertain which grass type is growing in a particular yard, a few simple visual cues help. Cool season grasses generally have softer, finer textured blades, stay green well into late autumn, and tend to look thin or browned out during peak summer heat. Kentucky bluegrass forms a dense, even carpet. Tall fescue grows in clumps with wider, coarser blades. Fine fescue blades are needle-thin and prefer shaded areas. Warm season grasses generally have stiffer, coarser blades, turn distinctly brown or straw-colored during winter dormancy, and look their best during the hottest months. Bermuda spreads aggressively through both above-ground runners and underground rhizomes. Zoysia forms a thick, springy mat that resists weeds. St. Augustine has wide, flat, finger-like blades and prefers humid coastal climates. When in doubt, the simplest test is to observe what the lawn does during the first hard frost of fall. Cool season grass stays green. Warm season grass turns brown. That single observation answers the question. Matching the program to the grass is what separates a tonic that delivers visible results from a tonic that disappoints. There is one more technique that turns even a strong microbiome program into a lawn that draws comments from passing cars. Part 6: The Iron Secret and the Mowing Rules that Finish the Job. Synthetic nitrogen makes grass grow fast. Liquid iron makes grass look magnificent without making it grow at all. This is the trick golf course superintendents quietly rely on. It is also the most underused technique in residential lawn care. In alkaline soils, which describes most American lawns, especially in the central and western regions, iron in the ground gets locked up in chemical forms grass roots cannot absorb. The grass lacks usable iron. A chlorophyll deficit shows up as a pale, washed-out green, even when nitrogen levels are perfectly adequate. Adding more nitrogen in this situation simply causes more growth without any improvement in color. A foliar spray of chelated liquid iron solves the problem from a different direction. The word chelated means the iron is wrapped in an organic molecule that lets the plant absorb it directly through grass blades, bypassing the soil entirely. Within 24 to 48 hours of a proper application, the lawn deepens into a rich, near emerald color. There's no growth surge, no extra mowing required, just color. A chelated iron product, mixed at the manufacturer's lawn rate, applied through a hose end sprayer in early morning, no more than once every 3 to 4 weeks during active growth. The most common active ingredients are iron sulfate and iron HETTA, both widely available at independent garden centers and through online turfgrass suppliers. One important warning: liquid iron stains. Driveways, sidewalks, brick walls, and white siding will all pick up a rust-colored mark from iron spray drift. Always rinse hard surfaces immediately after application, and never spray on a windy morning. 2 more habits finish the picture, and both are completely free. The first is the 1/3 rule. Never cut more than 1/3 of the grass blade in a single mowing. Taller grass shades the soil, holds moisture during summer heat, and naturally crowds out weed seeds before they germinate. For most cool season lawns, that means mowing at 3 to 4 inches. For most warm season lawns, 2 to 3 inches. St. Augustine and centipede grasses prefer the higher end of those ranges. Bermuda can be cut shorter when the underlying soil and irrigation support it. The second is grass clipping recycling. Leaving clippings on the lawn instead of bagging them returns roughly 25% of a lawn's annual nitrogen demand directly back to the soil. For free, every single mowing. Clippings break down within a week or two during active growth. They do not cause thatch. Thatch is built up compacted root and crown tissue, not leaf clippings. A homemade tonic, a seasonal molasses drench, and 2 simple mowing habits. Total seasonal cost for a typical 5,000 square foot lawn, under $30. Time investment, under 30 minutes per application. Result? A lawn that holds its color from spring through fall, builds itself into something more resilient every year, and outlasts the chemically fed yards on either side. A lawn cared for this way teaches something quiet. The strongest growth rarely comes from forcing change at the surface. It comes from feeding the unseen foundation underneath, slowly and patiently, until life takes care of the rest. Thanks for spending this time at Rooted Grace. If this approach changes one corner of one yard somewhere, that is reason enough. Until next time, may the soil be rich, the roots run deep, and the days hold grace.